Happy Margot, and then it has another cover, which I'm sure someone will hold up shortly. There you go. Mighty Best, yeah, that's sad, Margot. I'll talk about that in a minute, but first I want to read from Paper Towns. I think I'm going to read the part, actually, that Hank just sang about, so that we can have a sense of the tension between the world we write and the world that becomes real. This is from the third chapter. I think Hank told you everything you need to know. Q and Margot are next door neighbors. Margot is the awesomest thing that ever happened to Winter Park High School, and Q is just a guy. And can you hear me in the back, by the way? Okay, good. And after 10 years of not really being friends, one night, Margot, with 1 month left in their senior year of high school, Margot shows up at Q's window, his bedroom window, and takes him on an all-night adventure through the streets of Orlando that culminates with them breaking into SeaWorld, but I'm not going to read that part. I'm going to read this part instead. This is pretty early on in their evening together. The thing about Margot Roth Spiegelman is that really all I could ever do was let her talk, and then when she stopped talking, encourage her to go on, due to the fact that 1, I was incontestably in love with her, and 2, she was absolutely unprecedented in every way, and 3, she never really asked me any questions, so the only way to avoid silence was to keep her talking. And so in the parking lot of Publix, she said, oh, by the way, Publix is a grocery store. Do you have that here?
Yes.
Oh, we've finally gotten far enough south. Okay. And so in the parking lot of Publix, she said, I made you a list. If you have any questions, just call my cell. Listen, that reminds me, I took the liberty of putting some supplies in the back of the van earlier. What, like, before I agreed to all of this? Well, yes, technically yes, she said. Anyway, just call me if you have any questions. But with the Vaseline, you want the one that's bigger than your fist. There's like a baby Vaseline, and then there's a mommy Vaseline, and then there's a big fat daddy of a Vaseline, and that's the one you want. If they don't have that, then get like 3 of the mommies. She handed me the list and a $100 bill and said, that should cover it. Margot's list. 3 whole catfish, wrapped separately. Beet. It's for shaving your legs, only you don't need a razor. It's with all the girly cosmetic stuff. Vaseline, 6-pack Mountain Dew, 1 dozen tulips, 1 bottle of water, tissues, 1 can of blue spray paint. And now a joke that doesn't make sense unless you have access to the text. Interesting capitalization, I said. Yeah, I'm a big believer in random capitalization. The rules of capitalization are so unfair to the words in the middle. Now, I'm not sure what you're supposed to say to the checkout woman at 12:30 in the morning when you put 13 pounds of catfish, beet, the fat daddy-sized tub of Vaseline, a 6-pack of Mountain Dew, a can of blue spray paint, and a dozen tulips on the conveyor belt. But here's what I said. This isn't as weird as it looks. The woman cleared her throat but didn't look up. Still weird, she muttered. I really don't want to get in any trouble, I told Margot back in the minivan as she used the bottled water to wipe the black paint off her face with the tissues. In my admission letter from Duke, it actually explicitly says that they won't take me if I get arrested. You're a very anxious person, Q. Let's just please not get in any trouble, I said. I mean, I want to have fun and everything, but not at the expense of, like, my future. She looked up at me, her face mostly revealed now, and she smiled just the littlest bit. It amazes me that you can find all that stuff even remotely interesting. Huh? College, getting in or not getting in, trouble, getting in or not getting in, school, getting A's or getting B's, career, having or not having, house, big or small, owning or renting, money, having or not having. It's all so boring. I started to say something, to say that she obviously cared a little because she had good grades and was going to the University of Florida's honors program next year, but she just said, Walmart. We entered Walmart together and picked up that thing from infomercials called V Club, which locks a car's steering wheel into place. As we walked through the juniors department, I asked Margot, why do we need V Club? Margot managed to speak in her usual manic soliloquy without answering my question. Did you know that for pretty much the entire history of the human species, the average lifespan was less than 30 years? You could count on 10 years or so of real adulthood, right? There was no planning for retirement. There was no planning for a career. There was no planning, no time for planning, no time for a future. But then the lifespan started getting longer and people started having more and more future, and so they spent more time thinking about it, about the future. And now life has become the future, right? Every moment of your life is lived for the future. You go to high school so you can go to college, so you can get a good job, so you can get a nice house, so you can afford to send your kids to college, so they can get a good job, so they can get a nice house, so they can afford to send their kids to college. It felt like Margot was just rambling to avoid the question at hand, so I repeated it. Why do we need V Club? Margot patted me in the middle of the back softly. I mean, obviously, this is all going to be revealed to you before the night is over. And then in boating supplies, Margot located an air horn. She took it out of the box and held it up in the air, and I said, no. And she said, no what? And I said, no, don't blow the air horn. Except when I got to about the B in blow, she squeezed on it and let out an excruciatingly loud honk that felt in my head like the auditory equivalent of an aneurysm. And then she said, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. What was that? And I said, stop, and then she did it again. A Walmart employee just a little older than us walked up then and said, hey, you can't use that in here. And Margot said with seeming sincerity, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. And then the guy said, oh, it's cool. I don't mind, actually. And then the conversation seemed over, except the guy couldn't stop looking at Margot, and honestly, I don't blame him because she's hard to stop looking at. And then finally he said, what are you guys up to tonight? And Margot said, not much, you? And he said, I get up at 1 and then I'm going out to this bar down on Orange if you want to come. But you'd have to drop off your brother. They're really strict about IDs. Her what? I'm not her brother, I said, looking at the guy's sneakers. And then Margot proceeded to lie. He's actually my cousin, she said. Then she sidled up to me, put her hand around my waist so that I could feel each of her fingers taut against my hip bone. And she added, and my boyfriend. The guy just rolled his eyes and walked away, and Margot's hand lingered for a moment, and I took the opportunity to put my arm around her. You really are my favorite cousin, I told her. She smiled and bumped me softly with her hip, spinning out of my embrace. Don't I know it? I got the third chapter. So as many people as are here tonight, there are also a lot of people inside that box watching. I'm going to mix it up. They're used to hearing me say the same thing over and over again. But I was thinking about something in the car ride today in the context of this part of the book. The first thing I want to say about it is this. I say too much. I was listening to myself yesterday, and I say way too much. I got to work on that. Stop myself, please. Now, every time they're going to notice it, I shouldn't have mentioned it. Dang it. So in that part of the book, Margot is clearly trying to say something to Q, and Q thinks that she's just trying to distract him from the issue at hand by trying to get him not to worry about the fact that she has purchased the club, which she will later use to immobilize her boyfriend's car because he's cheating on her and she doesn't want him to be able to drive home naked. She wants him to have to walk. Please stop noticing it. So that's what he thinks. And he thinks before that, when she's talking about the fact that there is no such thing as the future and that the future is a construction that we've made up because we live for so long now, he thinks that she's just rambling.